We're going to hold the politicians accountable. But Al Torcaso and Chris Weiss can't do it alone. We need you. And if you don't do it, guess what? Eventually, they're going to find a way to shut Chris up and shut me up. But you know what? If you do it, they're not going to know how to handle it. Because if you actually start taking action, and we're talking 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe starting to get into the thousands, calling the leaders, calling the DHS, calling CART, calling these other organizations that I can't remember, or even going to Mercy Behavioral, Western Psych, or whichever place has the offending person, and saying, look, I already have challenges in my life, physically, psychologically, or mentally. I don't need additional problems. And if you don't want to do the job, as I always said before, yes, it sounds funny, but I am very serious when I say, if you ain't doing right, get ready to say good night. Because you don't need that job. If you don't treat my family right, you need to say good night. If you don't treat Chris right, get the heck out of my sight. If you mess with Ray, you got to deal with AJ. Understand? So get it straight. Because I know we got little time left. But I'm not going to sit here and act all, oh, I'm so sorry I took on a terrible, extremely powerful organization. I'm going to fight for justice. If Martin Luther King can fight for justice, I can fight for justice. If the former presidents like Lincoln can fight for what's right, I can fight for what's right. And more importantly, you can fight for what's right. You may not have a lot of ways to articulate. You may have to ask people to help you out. I don't know. But I do know that everybody matters and no one should be mistreated and abused. And when I say that abuse happened, yeah, there's some things I can prove in the court of law if I have to. And I might add, for those people out there who think, oh, we know how to shut Al up, we'll make him go to court. Well, let me tell you something. Now this is when I got to get a little, if you want to take me to court, I welcome that. But know this and know it well. I've been to court in my life 17 times. I've never taken one law class. But you know what? You know what my record is in court? And I'm not boasting or challenging. I'm just telling you the facts. Fact is, I'm 17-0. And I win because I'm always in the right. I'm not perfect, but I will have the preponderance of the evidence, or I will have beyond reasonable doubt. And let me tell you something. If you choose to go to court with me, all the dirty laundry is coming out. The stories about how people were crying beyond belief because they couldn't warm up their food, that's going to be in front of the jury. You get the point? I'm not picking a fight, but you're going to do what's right. You are going to do what's right. And yes, there are good people in the Department of Human Services and CART and all these organizations, but I'm sick of the abuse. And what happened to my sister Diane Carmela Torcaso was a crime. So that means it's time to get action. And I might add, when the agencies know of abuse that constitutes a crime and they don't call the police and they don't report it, it seems to me that maybe it's time to shut that agency down. And if I'm sounding mad, you're dang right I'm mad. People are being abused. Chris was kicked out of a center because of a medical problem. That's not helping people with recovery. That's causing them to have psychological torture that can cause them to regress, that could even cause suicide. Let's tell it like it is. And Chris has a little story to tell us that he didn't know, but you got to do it. You only have about 3 minutes to do it. But something that happened at New Horizons recently. You want to throw out what happened at New Horizons?
Yeah.
You got 3 minutes.
What happened at New Horizons last week? There was one of the members was on the phone talking to their ICM, and people know what that is. And the other person wanted to use the phone, and they wanted to talk to her ICM. And evidently, a fight broke out when the staff wasn't around, and the person that was on the phone ended up with a broken arm.
So let me get this straight. Now, we don't know all the details, so we may have to get back to you on this. But what I want to know is, was the police called because of the assault? If the police were called, do you know what happened?
The police were called. I don't know all the details. I asked the person to call me back, and
They haven't yet.
they haven't called me back yet. But
What happened to the victim ultimately? What's
they
the
were
story?
they were both kicked out the center, which
Okay.
I don't think they should have been. You know.
Okay, so why was the victim kicked out? That's a good question.
It is a good question.
Okay,
Yeah.
you can't answer that, but let's go back to the people there. Now, I hope that some of you could call in. We got about 5 minutes, 10 minutes left. But I got to ask Raymond a question. Raymond,
Yes.
does it sound right that the victim was kicked out? Does that
No.
sound right to you?
Not at all.
Anybody else want to say what they think about it? Does that sound right that the guy with a broken arm or a woman with a broken arm should be kicked out? What do you think?
No, it doesn't. The assaulter, the person did the assault, should
Yeah.
be kicked out, but not the victim.
It don't sound right to me.
I don't know, we don't have enough information.
We don't have enough information, but if in fact it turns out to be true, do you think that they should have been kicked out, the victim?
Well,
If it turns out to be true,
I'm
that's
not,
all
I'm not
asking.
sure if the victim was in on the fight or started
Okay.
the fight. I mean, I think that
Right,
the staff
but-
has to be
right.
concerned with all the people there.
Well,
If people are gonna fight in the center, then.
let me just ask you this question. Say you were in charge of that center and a fight breaks out. What would be your idea of a proper procedure? What would you do?
Well, it isn't really anything I do now, but what would I do personally? I would, depending on the severity of the fight. If people were
Right.
fighting to the level that it was endangering other people
Right.
there, then, I probably would have the people leave. And then I would probably look at some type of mediation to try to correct the situation.
Okay, but ultimately, if the victim was a true victim and didn't start the fight, and they basically were totally violated, don't you think that that person should be reinstated at some point? Let me not ask you, because that may put you in a bad predicament, but let me ask Annette and Chris and Ray and Linda, what do you think? If the person was an actual victim, should they ever be allowed back in that center, or would it be best that they never go back?
Yes, if they didn't initiate the fight, then I think that they have a right to go back.
Okay,
And being the victim, they're the one that was attacked.
what's Ray think?
I don't know. I think eventually, once everything gets settled down, that eventually everybody involved should get together and get the bottom of it.
Okay.
So that way it won't happen again and reaffirm the phone policy.
Okay.
Or if the phone is the problem, then stop letting consumers use phone unless emergency purposes.
Okay. Linda, do you have any thoughts?
I also agree that if the victim was not at fault, then he should be allowed back in right away. Or if he was involved in starting the fight or whatever, then both people should sit down with either a therapist or a staff
Right.
member, whatever, and try and rectify the situation, and then they should be allowed back.
But it seems to me, though, no matter what happened, it seems to me that there needs to be a better reporting of the incident. I think that's what is missing. I certainly believe also we got to stop letting agencies have so-called independent internal investigations. And I will tell you that, just so that you know, with my sister, the agency itself at one point literally had my sister and a consumer staff member basically coerced into going into a meeting on the pretense that it had absolutely nothing to do with the incident that she was reporting. When she got in there, they basically interrogated her, which I think is borderline criminal. But I just want you to know these things are going out there. And that's why Chris and I aren't going to stop. We ain't stopping anytime soon. And I'm sorry if it ticks off agencies, politicians, corporations, organizations. I really don't care. What I care about is justice, and that's all I care about. But with that, we are going to get caller number one. Caller number one, you're on the air.
Okay, this is going to Linda.
Okay, this is for Linda.
Linda, I don't really know you, and but who put all this this show together today with this? I'm watching. Who's the director here? Who was the director of this show today?
That's Jim Walsh here, sitting next to me. He's the director.